Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Wait, so where
Trying to
are
turn
you?
it up just a little bit. It's a little quiet.
Alrighty, okay.
Should I turn sideways? Is that better?
I'm not gonna lie, I can't see you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all I've got is a little thing that says DB in it.
Let's see here. Hang on. How about now?
Yeah, still nothing. Hmm.
Let me try something else. Can I, let's see, one more. Still nothing, huh?
Yeah. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can. Let's see if there's anything else I can do here. That's really weird.
Yeah. Not to worry if we don't have any video. But...
You can't see anything from me, not even like a, okay.
No, all that is just come up with your name, that's all.
Let me see if I can change the setting. Hang on one second.
Alrighty.
I haven't used Skype in a long time.
I know, me neither. I was like, God, I'm gonna have to re-download it. 'Cause I didn't know it.
It's weird.
Yeah. Not to worry if you can't get it going.
I wonder if my Wi-Fi is blocking it.
Ah, okay, maybe it's that.
That would be weird though if it was.
Yeah. Wait, did I call you? Ah, there we are, I can see you.
Okay.
Hooray! Real, nice. Okay, I can see you. It's all good. Wait, so are you in Dallas at the moment?
That's right, I am, yeah.
Nice, okay. Can you just like introduce yourself? Like, who are you? And what
Yeah,
is
sure.
Dallas Bike Mess?
Sure. My name's Josh Miller, and I actually work downtown. I live in one of the Dallas suburbs, and the whole Dallas bike mess sort of started out as a joke. My wife and I were going out to dinner one night, downtown, and I think it was November of last year, just as the bikes were really starting to show up, and we kind of were joking about, oh, there's bikes everywhere. How long will it be before there's regulation about them? How long before businesses start complaining about it? And then we sort of said, oh, it'd be funny to make a Instagram account where we just take pictures of the bikes and post them. And so a couple days later, on my way into work, I snapped a couple of pictures of bikes and posted them, and it really just took off after that. So December 5th was the first day, and I noticed yesterday that I'd posted 600 pictures of bikes, and I started. Initially it was just me taking a few pictures of bikes that I saw, like at lunch and that sort of thing, and some of the people I worked with would take pictures. But then I sort of made a post that said, "Hey, if you see bikes out, send me pictures." And it just sort of went crazy. People started sending me pictures, and people were emailing me pictures and videos. And next thing I knew, a couple of different news sources wanted to do interviews, and it sort of just took on a life of its own. So it's been kind of fun, but it really just started out as a joke. But it's gotten a little bit serious because we have like 5 different companies that have put bikes in downtown Dallas. Something
Right.
like 20,000 bicycles have been put throughout the city. And this is a place that it's not super bike friendly. There aren't a lot of bike lanes and that sort of thing. So it's really hard to see how there's enough demand for 20,000 bicycles in downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
And they've ended up in a lot of strange places. You end up in creeks. There's a lake, just outside of downtown. A lot of them end up in the lake. I think people throw them in the lake sometimes on purpose, but I get a lot of interesting pictures, bikes thrown into dumpsters, hanging from trees, hanging from bridges. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah. Wait, do you know what the population is of Dallas?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the Metroplex is several million, but downtown Dallas is it's a lot smaller. So Dallas proper is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, but the Metroplex is quite large, but the Metroplex covers several hundred square miles.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different cities and suburbs, but the area of downtown is only a few square miles, and that's where most of them have been put, is sort of in the downtown area and uptown area, which is a much smaller area.
Right. Okay. And is it like, do you think, how you said about it, how it's getting more kind of serious? Do you think, what is it people are like feeling? Is it like an anger? Are people like frustrated? Or like, can you gauge what it is that people are feeling?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think people are very frustrated. I think, for me personally, I think it's a good idea and concept. Like, hey, have being able to go jump on a rental bike when I need to, run to the bank over lunch, it's very handy. I've used them several times. So, I've had meetings I needed to go to, or like I said, need to go to the bank or to get lunch, and I'll jump on one of the bikes. And, it's super convenient. It's cheap. It's like $1 for a half hour or $1 for an hour. So it doesn't cost that much. And there's almost always a bike sitting right outside our building. But the problem is that there's not just one bike sitting outside the building. There's like 25 bikes sitting outside of our building. And every building downtown's got 10, 15, 20 bikes sitting around it. So they're just absolutely everywhere. So I think that's the thing that frustrates people, is there's just way too many of them. And I think, there's 5 companies, and they're sort of all competing for market share. So they sort of dumped a bunch of bikes all at once to try and capture as much market share as they could. And I think eventually 2 or 3 of them will leave Dallas. But for now, there's 5 companies, and they're all sort of competing to to have market share. And there's just way too many of them. Right. And people have gotten angry. People, I think some people deliberately knock them over because they're mad that they're there. I've seen people sort of rounding them up on their own, and I don't know where they take them, but people have taken them on their own and stored them somewhere, or some of the bikes even get vandalized. We've seen bikes that they have this locking mechanism on it.
Is
that
it on the back wheel?
Yeah, on the back wheel. That's right. You scan them with an app, and then they unlock, and then you can ride on them. And when you're done, you relock it, and that stops the meter on it. And people have broken the locks off of them so that you can ride them as much as you want. I've seen a couple of bikes where people took all the company's equipment off of them and spray painted them another color, so you couldn't really tell it was their bike anymore, and even tried to sell them on like eBay or Craigslist or something. So there are just too many of them. And I think people are think that it's an eyesore on the city. In fact, Katy Perry came to town, did a concert here about a month ago, and she mentioned it during her concert. She's like, "Dallas, what's wrong with you? You have so many bikes everywhere. It's a mess." And so that kind of that caught a lot of attention. Like, so
Dallas needs to come to Jesus or something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
And the funny thing is, like, so I don't know, here in England, like, I think the original bike scheme, like in London, was like they were called like Boris bikes, and they were all docked, and they had these docks. And I don't know, I think that maybe, I've never been to New York, but I think that was what City Bike was, maybe.
Yeah. Yep, they're docked too.
Yeah, and then now I live in Manchester, and we have Mobike. And the thing that kind of sparked my interest, like, with Mobike, just because I, like, make work about kind of public spaces and things like that, and I realised that these Mobikes are dockless. That's their, like, selling point, and people are putting them in bike racks. And it's kind of funny that people feel like they have this responsibility, this, like, civic responsibility, when it's so unrequired. And if anything, I think people get annoyed, because if the bike rack's full and you've got a legitimate bike that's not a rental bike, you have to then, like, try and pick up this really heavy Mobike and move it so you can access the rack, which is like the kind of complete opposite of what your experiences of rental bikes. It's just kind of funny. I don't know what that says about, whether that says more about just the situation of how you've got too many bikes, or maybe what that says about English people and like how they
maybe what it says about people in Dallas.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe, but like, does that like, I don't know, what does that do for you? You like, that's weird, or is that just like?
Yeah, well, there's sort of a limitation on the number of places you can park them. There aren't very many bike racks. Dallas is not a super bike friendly city. There aren't many bike lanes. There aren't many bike racks, and so when they were talking about the rental bikes coming to Dallas, the city sort of did a study, from what I understand. It was like, it's going to cost several $1 million to build infrastructure for docked bikes.
Right.
And we don't have the budget to spend on that as a city. So the city actually invited all of the dockless bikes in and said, would you please come to Dallas and, bring your bikes here and bring this solution. I don't think they expected maybe quite this many to come all at once. But you're right that New York, a lot of other cities have the docks, they have bike racks, but Dallas just doesn't have that infrastructure. Yeah. And honestly, Dallas is a city where people drive. They drive even short distances. Uber is very popular. Right. So people use Uber almost like you would use a rental bike. There's a lot of access to Uber. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. The bike companies all say that utilization is going up, and I have seen people riding the bikes, more and more. So it does feel like some utilization is starting to happen of the bikes. But you see way more of them just sitting around than being actually used. Right. So it's if I were to go outside the building today, there would be literally, I could see somewhere between 25 and 50 of them, by just walking out the front door of the building. Wow. They're just absolutely everywhere.
They're strewn everywhere. And like, have the companies, like, have they been in touch? Is there like a correspondence between like the citizens of Dallas? Like, have they admitted that there's too many bikes, or?
I don't think any of them have admitted there are too many bikes. They meet regularly with the city to discuss solutions and best practices. The city, as I understand it, is working on some regulations about I don't think they finalized what they're going to do yet, but they're working on regulations either for the number of bikes in a given area, maybe some geofencing, that says within this area this many bikes, you've got to park it in this area or be fined, or right. They're working on some of those regulations. There's one town actually within Dallas called Highland Park that actually issued a ban that says any bikes left out in the city overnight, the city will confiscate and impound. Wow. Now it's sort of a it's a wealthier area in town, and they just took the view that if the bikes are there overnight, we're picking them up. So the rental companies have actually done, from what I understand, a pretty good job of, getting in there sort of at dusk and picking up any bikes that, so they don't get impounded. So, the city of Dallas, on the other hand, did threaten the bikes that, you need to get these cleaned up by this date. It was like 3 weeks ago. And that date came and went without really any real change. And they sort of, backed off their initial stance of, we're going to impound the bikes, and said, we'll give you more time to figure it out. So a lot of people weren't really happy about that. There basically wasn't any change. So I know they are talking with the city. A number of the companies, correspond with me.
In the comments.
which is interesting. I've had coffee with, a guy from OFO. Some people from Lime Bike have reached out. People from V-Bike reach out. The only one I haven't heard from is Mobike, actually.
Right.
But they're the only ones who really haven't contacted me. But I think that I don't think any of them would admit there's too many bikes publicly, but there's too many bikes.
Yeah, and like I don't know. I assume you must have seen like what they call like the bike graveyards, that,
right?
Like in China and things.
China. Mm-hmm.
It's really bizarre because it's like, I don't know, thinking about it, if they're manufactured in, the Far East or wherever, and then so they're manufactured there, then they're shipped over.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, yeah, it's got the benefits of, like, you know, what riding a bike has, and, like, trying to make a city more, you know, cycling friendly. But the reality is, like, where, like, it's not like it's bringing an industry to, because they're not made where you are, and they're not, and when they're gotten rid of, it's, the parts are shipped back there, or, like, the broken bikes are shipped back there. It's kind of a bit like, where's your, like, connection, like, where's the connection with the actual industry and, like, the making of the stuff?
And the other thing is, I don't really know today. I don't think any of the bike companies are profitable, at least not in the U.S.
Right.
You know, they're so focused on, you know, acquiring market share that they give away a lot of rides. I think for the whole month of January, at least one, if not two, of the companies gave away rides completely free for the whole month, and some of them maybe even doing that here in February. But yeah, they give away a lot of rides too. So I'm not 100% sure how they even, you know, make money in the end.
Yeah. So, yeah, because they're, like, I read online that there are all these, like, kind of weird companies that have, like, got their fund, like, they're startup companies that have got their funds, like, kind of elsewhere in kind of strange things like gaming development and stuff. And then they, like, channel this money into these bikes that no one wants by the sounds of things, which is really weird. Do you think they're ever, like, do you think it's ever going to be something that's sustainable, like rental bikes? Do you think docking stations is the solution? Do you, like, can you see there being, like, a future for them?
You know, that's the problem with the docking stations is that you have to have them everywhere to, you know, get people to use the bike, because the last thing you want to do is jump on a rental bike to take it somewhere and then there not be a place to park it when you get there. You know, so I think that prevents a lot of people from using docked bikes, because you just don't know if there's a place to park it when you get there. The beauty of the dockless ones is, you know, I can leave it wherever I'm at, but that's also the downfall of those dockless bikes is I can literally leave it wherever. And so I think eventually, I don't think the bikes are going away in Dallas. I think they're going to be in Dallas, you know, for the foreseeable future. And I suspect that 2 or 3 of the companies will eventually decide, you know, they're not going to have operations here, and, you know, that 2 or 3 of the companies are going to sort of win the market share battle here. And in the end, you know, we'll probably have something closer to 10,000 bikes in Dallas, and, you know, it'll be 2 companies that have bikes here instead of 5. So I think that's probably what will happen. Just the market will eventually sort it all out on its own.
Right. Okay. So do you think state regulation here is, like, do you not see that as what's going to solve it? It's just going to be the market that's going to.
I think it'll be a combination. I do think the city will regulate them in some way. I definitely think that will happen. I don't know that will be the reason that a couple of the companies will leave. I think a couple of the companies will just find that maybe their bikes, they didn't get a high enough utilization rate, or maybe they aren't funded well enough to sort of weather this time period, and, you know, won't make it financially. So, but at least 2 or 3 of them are very, very well funded and can hang around and not make a profit for a long time.
Right. Okay. Like, and the thing is, I'm trying to imagine, like, if one of these companies has to, like, kind of pull out of this, what, like, I don't know what they'd do then. Like, what, you get rid of all the bikes, like, no one's going to want to take on those bikes, because they're bikes that aren't, you know, people that actually like riding bikes
people don't want to ride them.
They're crap bikes, like, they've got, like, 1 gear and really heavy and really clunky. So, like, it's like they've made them all for this short usage period.
Yeah.
And then they're just going to have to throw them back into that graveyard in China. It's really, like, I don't know, maybe that's, like, probably says a lot about, like, unsustainability of, like,
I think the companies would probably say they're mostly recyclable, and that they, you know, that they can and will recycle. In fact, I know Ofo takes some of their older bikes, their older designs, and, like, refurbishes them and then donates them to, you know, to schools and that sort of thing. They've done several initiatives like that here in Dallas, where they've taken, older bikes and donated them to lower income schools and lower income neighborhoods.
Right.
So I think I do think you've raised a good point. There's going to be a lot of bikes that are going to have to be cleaned up, at some point. A lot of the components probably can be recycled, and I think they'll probably try and, get some credit for giving them away.
Wow. It's just really funny when I stumbled across it was an article and then it was linked to your page, and it was like, because I think recently in Paris they've just gotten rid of the Dockless bikes. I think more because people were just destroying them, just
in Paris they did.
In Paris, I think so.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know whether they got rid of them or they've done something because they realised that people were just ruining them.
Yeah, there's a guy. There's an account called Park Your Bike Paris or something like that.
Right. Okay. And that's of the same vein.
It does the same kind of thing.
Right. It's so fun. I don't know whether maybe it's just here in Manchester they got the number right, or maybe people are just parking them really well, and we're just not feeling the effects of it. But I know I'll go outside and I can guarantee I'll see a mobike, but it's I've seen them in the canal before and stuff, and just I think idiots just throwing them in and stuff, but I don't think they'd be seen as an eyesore because the quantity isn't so vast that it's kind of too overwhelming kind of thing. So I don't know, I might have to look up how many bikes we were given, and maybe it's because Manchester's quite it's got bike lanes, it's one of those places that it's quicker to get on the bike than on the bus or in a car kind of thing. So maybe it's just kind of their misjudgment of that, but it's just a total contrast of anything I'd ever realised about rental bikes or bike share. So yeah, that's really interesting.
So what are you're working on this for a project for what?
So I study fine art at uni here in Manchester, and I was predominantly kind of just I was taking a lot of photos of unnoticed things in public spaces, and usually my work is kind of has this kind of daft kind of sense of humour to it, and then someone mentioned to me, isn't it really funny that people, they don't need to, but here they are parking mobikes in bike racks. And so I went out and in an hour I think I took about 70 pictures of bikes being parked in bike racks. It's everywhere. And then I was just reading articles online about how people feel about dockless bikes for the complete opposite reason. Why are people they're dockless, why are people doing that? And then I realised actually the docklessness of them isn't loved around the world at all. It's not shared at all, which is it's just it was a really bizarre find, and and some of the pictures that people send into you are really good, and it's really funny what you can read about a city and its people through that kind of thing. But I don't know, I've got a few more days to work on it, so I'm just going to make something from it. But thank you so much for talking to me.
For sure, happy to do it. Let me know if you need anything else or anything like that.
Brill, I will do. All right, well, good luck with Dallas. Hope it all gets cleared up. But thank you so much.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you later.
All right, have a good day. Bye.